This incredible story happened at the Edo Wildlife Sanctuary in South Africa. A baby elephant started his day as usual. The herd roamed under the warm sun, grazing and looking for food. Finally, they stopped at a natural waterhole to drink and refresh themselves. The youngest member of the herd was particularly looking forward to the moment. Splashing in the water was the highlight of his day, as it helped him cool off after hours in the hot sun. As usual, the baby elephant started playing happily in the water, but suddenly everything got out of hand. While rolling in the muddy pool, he got stuck in the slippery banks of the waterhole and couldn't get out. The little elephant panicked and struggled desperately to free himself. But the harder he kicked, the deeper he slipped into the mud. The rest of the herd didn't notice the young elephant's drama until it was time to move on. As they formed up to leave, they realized something was wrong. As is typical of their kind, the herd gathered around the distressed baby elephant. Some members tried to free him, but all their efforts were unsuccessful. The calf didn't sink any further, but it didn't get any further either. The few elephants who helped found that they could not free the cub on their own, so they called the rest of the herd to help. Together they tried to free the animal, but it seemed hopeless. Their efforts lasted for hours and the situation worsened. In desperation, the elephants cried out for help. In the distance, some visitors to the sanctuary actually heard the screams of the elephants, but they didn't realize the seriousness of the situation at first. The situation became even more explosive when the herd, still struggling, heard a noise in the distance. This sound seemed to get closer and closer and panicked the elephants. Suddenly, a jeep appeared on the horizon and raced toward the scene. But were the inmates friends or foes? The herd didn't have time to find out and protectively surrounded the cub to protect it from possible danger. The men in the jeep drove around the elephants, trying to disperse the herd to find out what was going on. But the animals stood their ground and refused to retreat even a step. They were determined to do whatever they could to protect one of their most precious members. Now the little elephant faced two opponents, the muddy ground and the men in the jeep that looked menacing. A silent battle ensued between the elephants and the jeep occupants. It was clear that neither party would give up so easily. Over the next few hours, the younger members of the herd fled, putting their own safety ahead of the babies. This forced the adult elephants to make a difficult decision. The baby was still hopelessly trapped and had no energy left. However, the jeep still had enough gas, and the driver was determined to break up the herd to see what was hiding them. Forced to make a choice, the older elephants chose to leave the baby behind and keep the bulk of the herd together. The men in the jeep emerged victorious. In the poor baby elephant's eyes, their intentions didn't matter. He was alone and had to fend for himself. The baby elephant became angry and desperately tried to get out of his predicament, but without success. The good news, however, was that the men in the jeep were neither poachers nor tourists, and they had no intention of harming the baby elephant. These were rangers of the nature reserve who had heard the animal's calls for help. Her goal was to help. Unfortunately, the only way they could act was to get the herd to give up their baby. The rangers immediately went into action. They tried several strategies, but none of them worked. Then, just as they were about to give up, the baby elephant miraculously began to break free. The men had managed to push aside some of the slippery mud, creating a small path for the elephant. After hours of fighting, he was finally able to free himself. Everyone was over the moon. The rescue operation was a success. But then it dawned on everyone involved. There was still a problem to solve. Where was the herd? The rangers knew they couldn't leave the baby alone while they searched for the herd. The safest option was to tie up the elephant while looking for his family. They had to find the herd and couldn't risk the baby running away on her own or even attacking one of them. As you can probably imagine, the baby elephant was less than happy to be tied up. It struggled, trying with all the strength it had left to free itself from its bonds, but it wasn't strong enough. His fate was now in the hands of the rangers, though he didn't trust them yet. However, realizing there was nothing he could do, he finally calmed down. The next big step for the rangers in reuniting was gaining the baby elephant's trust. After struggling in the heat for so long, they realized the baby was probably dehydrated. One of the rangers grabbed a container and filled it with water. When the container was within reach of the elephant, he reacted immediately, lowering his trunk into the water and happily drinking. For now, a truce of sorts has been struck between the rangers and the beast. With the water at his disposal, the baby elephant was finally able to take care of himself. Not only did he drink until he wasn't thirsty, but he also hosed down to cool off and cleanse himself. The cold water on his back was the perfect way to ward off the sun's heat, get closer to the baby elephant, and inspect it more closely. It was of great importance to ensure that the elephant was safe after a tiring day. When no injuries were found on his body, the rangers were relieved. As the day progressed, they noticed that the baby elephant looked up nervously at every sound. It was obvious that he missed his family. But amazingly, the next sound the baby elephant heard was exactly what it had been waiting for all day. His flock called to him. The men also heard the noise, but did not know from which direction it was coming. It turned out they were back near the watering hole, right where the whole mishap had started. They had returned to collect the baby elephant and signaled their presence. As soon as the hatchling was close enough to see its flock, it called out to them and was overjoyed. The rangers got into their vehicle, drove to a safe distance, and safely observed what was happening. The elephant calf happily ran towards his family. The herd responded with the same excitement, and the people witnessed an incredible moment. If this story touched you as much as it did us, you should watch this video. An elephant got reunited with his unusual mom. Click here for the full story.